Oh, well, the mayor joins us now. She is, of course, the mayor of the Nelson Mandela Bay, Babalwa Lobishe. Mayor, a good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's only been a few weeks since you've been in that position, and it seems that already the pressure starting very, very early for you to get things right. I think let's start with an update. What you know at this point around the 29 kids that had fallen ill in Kariega, if you've had any sort of updates, and any other cases that you are concerned about where children are concerned.
Thank you, Naledi. As of now, we only had of that 29 of affected cases. But as the city, we've taken it upon ourselves to go and test the food that has been sold by the person to the children. Hopefully, it's the same batch that they have purchased. So our labs are busy with that. Tomorrow we should be having concrete information in terms of what has been found from that. But as well, we are interacting with the Department of Health around the cases so that we are able to formulate a solid case against the said vendors.
Yeah, but can we talk about what is the similarity or the common denominator in the cases that we see perhaps in Nelson Mandela Bay, in Kariega versus cases that we saw in other parts of the country, Naledi, Soweto, the issue of the Department of Health raising this chemical, organophosphate, many saying it also originates from a pesticide. If that is the case, that you are noting as a challenge in some of the stores there in Nelson Mandela Bay?
I think, Naledi, part of the major challenge is that these vendors don't see nothing wrong in repackaging the food. There's no cleanliness around there, and as well, without a license of handling food and certification in terms of the health standards and food. They are literally doing it on their own. Within the refrigerators, we found even sliced processed bologna, which is not packaged. It's in the middle of the fridge, but it's ready for reselling to the public. Others were Russian with ham, single packaged and repackaged, not in the original form where they were produced. And they don't see anything wrong. One of them was asking me, what is it that you want again from our shop? You are here for the second time, and we have the authority to be here as asylums, but you keep on coming to the shop. And I said, I'm going to come up until you stop selling what you're not supposed to be selling. So they don't see anything wrong in repackaging. And I think the challenge is in the main emanate from this repackaging.
Yeah, but because there's also the issue of regulation of our Spaza shops that has come up. I mean, here in Gauteng, for instance, the Gauteng government talking about Spaza shops needing to be regulated, bylaws needing to be put in place. But that speaks to municipalities that are here in Gauteng. From the Eastern Cape and provincial point of view, do you believe that you are given enough guidance, the resources and tools that are needed for you to deal with this matter outside of just going into the stores, raiding them? Because the question is going to be, what is the long-term plan, Mayor?
Well, I think legislatively we were hamstrung, but I think from the recent gazette that talks to the compliance of Spaza shops, tomorrow we want to take to cancel the item of these Spaza shops so that we adopt the national gazette that has been given to all municipalities around by national government around the operations of Spaza shops in townships. And we are going to be taking it as an item of, as a matter of public importance, because it then touches on everyone's life. And we will be considering it as the first item tomorrow in council. And from where we are currently, The only thing we can do is to just enforce them in terms of the health provisions, but we can't incriminate them. But I think in terms of the Gazette, we will now have the leg to stand on.
As of the raids that we covered today, no arrests have been made?
No arrests outside of the fact that they would not have legal papers to be in South Africa as foreign nationals. And all the shops that Spaza shops that we have identified with serious, with loopholes in terms of non-compliance are owned by foreign nationals. It's 107 of them in the city, and all of them, when we close, the following day they reopen. And it then forces us to go again and again and again, cut electricity, confiscate food, but time and again, they do stock again. So with the bylaw, it's going to give us a leg to stand on so that we now arrest them and open criminal cases, because they are utilizing municipal infrastructure with no authority, don't want to pay, and yet they are tampering with our infrastructure in terms of electricity reconnection. Then it's something else. It means we do have to learn. But in terms of where we found, for instance, today, on the third shop we went to, they have reopened, they have now paid the electricity, and they now have, they are complying in terms of being asylums in South Africa. But the problem is that the business is not registered, and the bylaw is only giving us a provision to charge, to fine them, nothing beyond the fine. And if they don't pay the fine within certain days, we then are going to follow legal actions, but we can't take them out as in now. Hence, we are saying, let's go to council, empower ourselves, and then move forward.
Yeah, because long term, I mean, today we're reporting that you ordered the closure of 8 immigrant-owned shops at the beginning of this week. But you're saying, well, you found 107 that are flouting some laws, and you shut them down today. Tomorrow they reopen. So what's the long-term view here? I mean, you talk about the issue of a lot of them not being registered. There is the question of whether or not asking them to register really does make a lot of the difference in terms of the quality of food that they then bring, right? Because there is also the point that registering is paperwork, Mayor, but it does not fix the issue of the supply chain of food. So how are you looking at that particular issue?
Well, we have agreed today that our legal team is going to be able to look at all the loopholes in terms of how to act when they have transgressed. And secondly, in terms of how best do we handle the fact that when we have said they must close, they reopen, and as well look also at how do we best utilize this multi-departmental support that we have, because one would find out that when we go on these raids, if we don't have Home Affairs as part of our team, we also don't have police and other sectors that are role players within this enforcement component. We are going to fall short of making an impact. But I must say that with the registration of these businesses, we do have a short-term process, a shortened process within our institution, but it's the willingness for them to come forward.
Yeah.
Because there are strict restrictions in terms of food handling. And as well, we have taken a vow that we are also going to visit the big shops that supply them. But the problem is that they buy on the big shops and repackage what they have bought on the big shops. So it means consistent monitoring We've got as the metro to look at a means of recruiting more ground workers that are going to do routine checks weekly to them, even if we use this public employment unit that we have, or we use EPWP as means of enforcement. Otherwise, if we are not going to do this routine check consistently, we might fall flat in terms of our means. But legislatively, there are serious loopholes that they then tap on for them to slide to go behind bars.
So I'm going to try and be pragmatic here, Mayor, and say all the measures that you're talking about might take time to implement. They certainly require a lot of resources. And of course, as the media will be watching to see how far you're able to get in having all of those elements in place. But for residents of Nelson Mandela Bay, they are, for instance, are worried on a daily basis, you know, today, tomorrow, about their children consuming food that they buy in the shop. So what is the message that you give to a resident around the power that they have in their hands to protect themselves and their children? What do you say is a safe place for them to go?
Well, I would not encourage our residents to go and buy to shops that are not registered. We've made them aware through public meetings the kind of certificate they must look for when they are going to these shops. Because when we issue a certificate every 3 months, we then monitor the operator. And we encourage our residents not to buy when there's no health certificate from our municipality. And as well, to be vigilant, we are going to utilize our ward committees as well for further in the wards these shops, because ward committees and ward councillors are our ears and eyes on the ground of us being in those particular wards. So empowerment is not only going to be made to these ground forces that I'm saying we need to employ as soon as possible, but as well with consistent empowerment. We've just came from a mayoral committee meeting where part of the suggestions that came was that let's call all these vendors in one room, give them marching orders. If they then go beyond that, we then act upon even on the owners of the houses.
Yeah.
Because it's their collaboration with the owners of the houses. None of them are compliant on building structures. None of them are compliant in terms of the rezoning of the housing sites to business sites. So there's so much collaboration on being on the wrong side of the law.
You know, as part of this discussion, Mayor, you talked about this a lot as well, saying that, you know, 107 stores that you've identified with many loopholes, and you say many of them owned by foreign nationals. What do you say to the argument that is that there is a lot of xenophobic sentiment in how we talk about this issue of spaza shops and food poisoning, and that it really should be more about perhaps another angle of looking at it, that it is a xenophobic matter at the heart of it? What do you say to that?
Well, I would not say it's a xenophobic attack, but it's the fact on the ground, and it's also our failure to deliberately empowering our local residents on or ring fencing these small businesses for our residents. Even now, there's nothing that is stopping our municipality on setting aside funding to support the local businesses. If we close these ones, we can rezone for local people who are interested. There's nothing that is stopping us. And it's part of the resolutions that we've taken. So my intention is to go on that within this 100 days in office, so that we are able to empower our local people and not leave it only to a certain group that is coming outside of the
But
country.
is that to say, Mayor, that you are also checking South African-owned spaza shops and doing the same due diligence where that is concerned? And I mean, is that to say then that South African spaza shops are more compliant? South African-owned, rather?
Yes, South African-owned spaza shop are more compliant, and they are where businesses are supposed to be. We have not found any transgressions to them. We've visited 4 of them. They are working in good order, having papers, even these informal ones, because in the Nelson Mandela, we also have a informal traders association and the registration of them thereof, where we also monitor them in terms of how they are handling food.
Yeah.
All of those with South Africans, they are all registered. But if you go to town, you find pop-ups of those that are not owned by South Africans, not registered. And today you remove them, tomorrow they are there, or later in the day they are there.
Okay.
So it's not even about being xenophobic, but it's about people who have arrived in the country with no respect for the laws of the country, and we've got to fight that attitude and stand for our country, so that everyone can be treated fairly, regardless of where they come from. The law applies to all of us.
Okay. I want to shift gears, Mayor, and just look at another issue. This at the beginning of this week, a landmark ruling coming out of the Supreme Court of Appeal. I'm sure you've seen this one, because a great example that has been made with the Nelson Mandela Bay at the center of it. A ruling there that has sought to, I suppose, clarify what is said in the Municipal Finance Management Act. And I'm going to read from a Daily Maverick piece that says it makes it clear that the law was intended to create personal liability on the part of municipal officials in particular circumstances. And essentially what this ruling has done is that it set a precedent for the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality to go after municipal officials where there has been fruitless and wasteful expenditure, for those officials to pay back that money. As the mayor, is this something that you will be pursuing?
Well, I think, Naledi, let's accept the ruling of the court. And I must say that this ruling just reminds us how serious it is to want to pursue, to work for government. Being a civil servant is not a child's play, because you are going to handle public money. If then it's public money, you should be accountable for it. And as the city, we are not going to protect anyone that is utilizing the money incorrectly. But if then it is proven beyond this that it did not go to their pockets, it was for the public good, then it will be something else. But yeah, ours is to accept the ruling thus far, and stand next to the matter.
Because at the moment, in March this year, the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, in March, saying that Nelson Mandela Bay had over 20 billion rand wasteful expenditure. And of course, you're new to this post, but now that there's been this ruling, there is that opportunity. So of this 20 billion rand wasteful expenditure that the Finance Minister talked about at the beginning of the year, is there room for you to make some of that back, to scratch some of that back for the municipality?
Well, I think that's the intention, because that's what we were pushing MPEG to do when we would have different party caucuses, that they must sort the multi-year accumulated expenditure. And thus far, they are saying they are up to date. So we assume that the report is going to come to council, wherein processes can now unfold for those who needs to be taken to the book, then that can be followed up. If the money must come back to the city, it will have to come back to the city.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Mayor there of the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, Babalwa Lobishe, speaking to us here on Newsfeed PM, the late edition.